China opened up all of a sudden, which has created a massive health emergency at this moment. You've tracked the pandemic very closely, so give us your sense of what you think is happening in China and the uptick in Chinese growth. Do you see this as being very short term, or do you think that China will be able to sustain its growth momentum over a longer period of time?
So what we have right now in China is indeed a health crisis with the pandemic going around in full force. If you look at peak infection rates and so on, we're seeing peaks, for instance, happen in Beijing. So the expectation as of now is that much of this will come down by the end of the first quarter, and then we would see a strong recovery in China. So there's going to be just that rebound coming because mobility will come back and restrictions will be lifted. But there are still factors weighing on growth in China, one of which is the property sector. The property sector is in crisis. The government is doing a lot of actions have been taken. Recently, they've announced many measures, so that could help. But that is an important concern. External demand is slowing as the global economy slows, so that obviously has a negative factor for China too. But again, looking into the future, China needs greater productivity growth. It has aging demographics, and we saw the headline today, which is population actually fell in China for the first time. So we need higher productivity growth in China. That requires more private enterprise, a more level, even playing field between the state-owned enterprises and the private enterprises. Again, in December, the authorities came out and said that they were going to focus a lot on growth and on this evenness. But we'll see what exactly is announced in terms of policies, because we haven't seen that yet.
What's your sense of the future of the globalization project? Because with the United States spending so much time on reworking its industrial policy, trying to encourage semiconductors, manufacturing within the United States, do you see a technological Cold War get worse in the months to come?
We've seen signs of technological decoupling between the US and China already. It's been happening in these last few years. And given recent policy announcements, I expect that will continue unless there is a way for the countries, to come back and work even more closely together. We are worried about fragmentation risks in general in terms of different trading blocks, different trading partners. It's perfectly reasonable for countries to want to have more resilient global supply chains and to build greater national security. I think that's valid concerns. But we are concerned that, in reaction to this, they're going to put policies in place that lead to what we call runaway fragmentation. And that is very costly for the global economy.
Explain why you're so apprehensive. If you're saying it is very costly for the global economy, a lot of people would say, hey, a country like India could potentially benefit from this idea of minilateralism. The fact that there is so much focus on nearshoring and friendshoring at this moment could potentially benefit a country like India at this juncture.
Without a doubt, what the world needs to do is more diversification in where they buy from, right? And in that context, India certainly can benefit from it. The risk is countries trying to bring all the production home, which is another feature that we're seeing, kind of what's called inshoring, by providing additional subsidies to their own firms and companies to bring production home. The problem with it is that when one country does it, maybe it's beneficial to you, but you're going to have retaliation from the others. And you see that. It usually leads to further trade wars, further retaliation. And then you end up in a world where things are much more costly for consumers and for firms. And we saw that before we saw the increase in trade over the last 30 years or so. So we have to protect the gains that we have from trade and make sure that the policies don't lead to decoupling around the world.